Hi, I'm Helen Goldwyn, and you're listening to The Sirens of Audio.
G'day audiophiles, welcome to another edition of the Sirens of Audio. My name is Dwayne and I'm joined by my co-host, Philip. G'day Philip.
G'day Dwayne, how you going? Good to see you again.
Well, welcome back, and another pick for you this week. We're going to have a talk about a Big Finish release with the Fifth Doctor and Tegan and Leela, called Time in Office, a fantastic episode by Eddie Robson. But first, before we do that, we're going to have a little refresher of what is going to be released in July. By the time this goes to air, a couple of these may have been released. But so for the month of July, have we had anything as of yet? Let's have a look and see what we have got. What's the first release that's coming out?
First one's the Short Trips Downward Spiral.
Okay, so that's a Fifth Doctor and Nyssa adventure. So, as always, the short trips are definitely well worth having a listen to. And if you go the 12-month subscription, I can recommend that because you get a nice little discount. So, £30 for a 12-month subscription of short trips, hitting your Big Finish app every month. Can't go wrong with that one.
Nice and cheap.
So coming up in the main range, and did we mention that? I think we did talk about last time that the Lovecraft Invasion had been delayed. So if we didn't mention it, I'll mention it again. Last month's episode, the Lovecraft Invasion by Rob Valentine, was delayed. It's going to be released sometime over the summer, probably towards the end of the summer. Don't know too much about why, just production hold-ups, something like that. But this month's monthly adventure is called Time Apart. And I'm just going to see who's written that.
It's a 4-part story again. So it's Steve Lyons, Jacqueline Rayner, Tommy Dovenbrand, and Kate Thorman.
Well, has our Kate Orman just put a TH in front of her name, or is that a different Kate altogether?
I'm assuming it's a different Kate altogether.
I would say so too. Never heard of her. And Tommy Donbevand.
I've never heard of him either, but he may have done some stuff.
Fantastic. It's great to get some new... I always get excited when I see new names because when you've been listening to Big Finish for as long as we have, you get to get used to the style. You sort of get to know the style to expect when you go into it. I know what I'm going to get when I go into a Steve Lyons story. I know the style. Jacqueline Rayner, she hasn't done too many, but I also know the kind of style of story she does too. But these other ones, they're going to be very exciting. So that's a Fifth Doctor adventure that's coming up in July. We've got The Robots 2. So that's the second box set in the Robot story, starring Nicola Walker and Claire Rushbrook.
And that'd be the work I'm most excited about because I love the first series. Really looking forward to seeing where it goes to next. And I've always had a bit of a thing for Pamela Salem. So since I was a young kid, I had a bit of a crush on Pamela from Robots of Death, and I still do. Every time I hear her voice, I just go weak at the knees.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you, Philip. I'm a bit the same.
Well, the clever way of getting around casting too many people is that Claire Rushbrook, the character she plays, Nicola's sister, is the designer of the robots. And so she's used her own voice. So that justifies all the robots having her voice. How to make sure you keep your cast numbers down.
Even though it's quite a big cast in the series.
It is still a big cast.
Yeah.
And it was also great having David Collins, because this will be his last, I think it's probably the last thing he did before he passed away. So glad we've got some stories with him. A bit sad he's passed away though.
I don't know if they did any more of the robots with him for further series. They usually do 4 volumes in their box set series, so I don't know whether... I think from the extras on Robots 1, David Richardson was saying that they'd organised the next few box sets with these cast members in mind, so not sure how that works out, but they often do things well in advance at Big Finish, so you never know. This may not be his last. May not be his last at all. So, yeah, very excited about that one. Here's another release that's coming out in July, and a series that I never really watched, but I'm really excited about it because Big Finish has taken it up, and that's Star Cops. What do you think of Star Cops, Philip?
Okay, I must admit I've not listened to Star Cops 1 yet, so it's on my list of things to get to. I just haven't got to it yet. Have you listened to it?
I have. It's absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
I love it. They haven't got the Australian actress. I think they till the end of the first series because they hadn't tracked her down yet. So it's got Philippe Olivier in it, playing a new role, and of course only the two David Calder and Trevor Cooper, the two original cast members from Star Cops, because I think the fella that played the American role, I think he died, so that's probably the reason it would no doubt be the reason why they haven't got him. But the Australian actress in there, they ended up tracking her down, and she's in further series from then on, so that's great. I can highly recommend it. It's great. It's one of those series where I wasn't really interested in the TV series, but then when Big Finish did it, I went and got the TV series, and now I love it. Absolutely fantastic. Another one that's coming out in July is Torchwood Save Our Souls, with Rowena Cooper playing Queen Victoria. What do you think of these ones with the original Torchwood, the original Torchwood?
Yeah, I'm loving all the monthly range. I think they're very creative and inventive. They're done with very small casts, but they manage to tell big stories. And Queen Victoria, Rowena Cooper, she was introduced. This I think must be her third story now. The first one she did with Captain Jack, and it was hilarious. The two of them together were just the biggest scream. And then she did one by herself, still dealing with aliens and alien invasion, and this is her third one coming up. So I'm looking forward to it. She's a great actress, and the character is a very clever character. When you mix Queen Victoria with alien invasion, it's great.
And Rowena Cooper came very close to being a companion, didn't she, at one point?
I think she did.
In the Faceless ones, she was Samantha Briggs, wasn't she? And she was going to...
no, that's not Rowena Cooper. That was a different actress.
Really?
So you're thinking about the Queen Victoria who in the TV series.
Yeah.
That wasn't Rowena Cooper. In Tooth and Claw. That was Pauline Collins.
There you go. Yeah,
Pauline Collins was almost a companion.
Yep.
And in fact, Big Finish have actually invited her to do a companion chronicles, and she said, no, thank you. So she was actually invited to do a companion chronicles. That's Pauline Collins.
Right.
But Pauline Collins wasn't interested in doing these either, so they recast Queen Victoria as Rowena Cooper. Different actors.
There you go. That explains that. I couldn't tell from the image because it looks like a sketched.
Yes, it does look similar to her. Very
similar. All right, another one is a series that I haven't heard before, but I'm pretty sure it's a series that you like. It's the Omega Factor, or if you're in Australia, the Omega Factor.
Omega Factor?
Yeah. You listen to this one, do you, Philip?
I do. So I remember watching this when I was about 11 years old. So I begged my father to let me watch this series, and it scared the life out of me when it was on TV originally. And then I got the DVD set about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still pretty good, holds up pretty well.
What's it about?
It's about, well, the reason why I wanted to watch it as a TV show is because Louise Jamison is one of the starring roles. She plays a scientist who's experimenting and tracking down the paranormal. And in the TV series, she meets a young man who, she's young too at that stage, who has a lot of powers. And his wife is actually murdered during the first episode. And so the whole series is conspiracy theories, trying to track down who murdered his wife and understand the paranormal. And so there's lots of very scary episodes with scary things happening in terms of the paranormal and investigating that. Then Big Finish.
So it's a bit like the X-Files.
Bit like the X-Files. Better than the X-Files.
Yeah.
Much better than the X-Files. Cleverer scripts, much cleverer, thought-provoking scripts. Then Big Finish took up the same character, Louis Jameson's characters 30, 40 years later, and Tom Crane, who's the character in the original series, it's his son. And so his son doesn't know his father, but through Louise Jameson, he finds out he has similar powers to his father, and they start investigating again. So I think they did 2 or 3 box sets of the audio dramas, and they're all great, very chilling stories, some of them. Just investigating the paranormal, and now these are a series of books coming out based on the stories. So I think this goes back to Tom Crane, though. So this is back to the original TV series, though. Okay. Really worth listening to. Very, very good. And anything Louise Jameson does, I get.
Okay. So we're talking July releases, July 2020. Hey, the world's in lockdown. We've got nothing better to do than listen to audio drama. So the next one that Big Finish is releasing is Missy, Series 2. Michelle Gomez and Rufus Hound. Rufus Hound was in box set 1 too as well. Let me say that again. Rufus Hound was in Series 1 as well, wasn't he?
Rufus Hound's been around a bit. He plays the meddling monk he's playing?
It is, yeah.
He also turns up in the Doom Coalition series as well. I think that's where he first appears. So I can't... Is that dreadful? I can't remember if he's in the first series of Missy. I remember loving her first episode, which was a Mary Poppins takeoff in the first box set, and just laughing all the way through this. I just shouldn't be laughing, but I was laughing all the way through the first episode. But I can't really remember the others too well. I'll go back and listen to the box set again before I listen to this one.
He was in Series 1. Just looked it up.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I thought he was. And I love what they do with the meddling monk in Big Finish. It's a great story, because there's been, I don't know if there's been 2 or 3 different versions of the monk in Big Finish.
Graham Gardner was the meddling monk through the Lucy stories, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was very good. They're the releases for the month of July. Anything you're particularly looking forward to, Philip?
Well, I'm looking forward to Missy, Torchwood, Robots. I'm looking forward to everything. What can I say?
Just all of it.
Looking forward to all of it.
Yeah, I think for me, the Robots 2 is probably my pick for most anticipated release for July. I just really love. I'm really looking forward to see what they do with those characters, and whether, I don't know whether they, because I know Toos was in the book Corpse Marker, written by Chris Boucher. So I've started listening to the audiobook of Corpse Marker, but it's one of those ones that I've put on at night time and always fall asleep. So I've never actually finished it. But I've listened to chapters 1 to 3 about 50 times. But I know Toos is in that.
You can't fall asleep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I worry sometimes if I get in the habit of falling to sleep too often with these things and then put them on in the car, what's my body going to do? Is it going to make me fall asleep? I hope not. All right, but another pick of yours to look at a little closer this week. It is a 5th Doctor story, release number 230, so not that long ago. It was released in September 2017. It's called Time in Office.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who, Time in Office.
Computer, start recording. My name is Fagax, and I'm a student at the Academy.
It is good to meet you.
Leela, isn't it? Yes, he never could resist bringing strange creatures home with him.
No, keep away, I'm warning you! Police brutality!
Yes, the good news is you've just interrupted a conversation I didn't want to have, so I'm already well disposed to whatever you have to say.
There's a 93.2% chance that TARDIS is going to overload and explode in the ancient past, causing life on Gallifrey to unhappen.
Your skill is pitiful. You do not deserve to wield such a fine weapon.
Incredible!
It's High Barnet.
A wholly alien civilization.
It's Earth, okay?
And not even a very interesting bit.
Take me back to Gallifrey.
A temporal drill. I'm going to use this to open a wormhole from then to now.
No!
What's the matter?
It's broken! It's feeding back on itself and just hurtling further backwards in time!
I knew this would happen. I knew if we went too far into the future...
They are using a vortex manipulator to bring your TARDIS back to Gallifrey.
Impact in 5, 4...
Oh my giddy aunt!
3, 2... Hold on!
1. Big Finish. We love stories.
So Time in Office by Eddie Robson. Philip, why did you pick this one?
Well, you asked me to pick a number between. No, I guess why I wanted to listen to this again was, once again, Louise Jamieson, love everything she's in. I really love the Gallifrey series. I think Gallifrey is so well written. I remember this bit, but it ended up being better than I expected. So I just wanted to hear Peter Davison working with Louise Jamieson. Janet Fielding is always superb in stuff she does too. So I just wanted to... It was just a chance to listen to a story that I thought would be good, and it worked out being better than I expected.
And Eddie Robson is always a name that I get excited about when I see his stuff. Although, I often get him confused with a couple of other writers. I think he may have a similar style, perhaps. Maybe that's why I get confused. I had a feeling that he had written a story that I like by the Eighth Doctor called The Last, but no, that was Gary Hopkins. And I also get mixed up with Eddie Robson and I think it's Robert Ross, who did Peer Pressure and Medicinal Purposes. So I don't know why I get mixed up with those, but I think Eddie Robson's first main range story was called ID, which was somewhere in the 90s, so it was quite well on in the history of Big Finish before he started writing main range stories.
Eddie started off with all the Bernice Summerfield stories, so he actually started writing short stories and prose first, and then he wrote a lot of her audios early on. The first ones I remember him writing would be for Lucy Miller's stories, the Human Resources. He often wrote the big climax, the Human Resources one, the Spiders one at the end of the third season. Grand Theft Auto, which is hilarious, showed his humour side. So he's done some great Blake 7 too. So he's written a lot of stuff for Big Finish across different ranges.
Quite diverse. And he's shown that he can do serious stuff, but he's got quite a sense of humour as well. So that's what I liked about Time in Office, was that it had lots of humour in it, because it gets compared to Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister. But I found as I was listening to it, I was thinking this is a little bit more serious than Yes Minister. Even though I guess Yes Minister is serious, but it's very, very, very tongue-in-cheek, whereas a lot of the tongue-in-cheek was left to Janet Fielding as Tegan. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I think Janet has an amazing sense of comic timing, and she was given a lot of the really, really funny lines. And I think because Janet will admit herself that she knows nothing about Doctor Who, and tries not to know anything about Doctor Who. So her character Tegan just kept being given the lines about, quizzed about how many times does the Doctor regenerate, and just her answers were just a scream every time, which is like her on stage. That's a trick question. I think there's a lovely question she's actually asked in terms of how many hearts does a Time Lord have, and of course, fans know that William Hartnell only had one heart. The two hearts only appeared later. And so she gives this hilarious answer about their first regeneration only has one heart, and after their first regeneration they get two. So she just takes the mickey out of fandom, which is what she's so good at. But every time Janet speaks, she's got something funny to say.
Yeah. And what did you think of her and Leela together? Because this is, in chronological terms, this is the first time the Doctor has seen Leela again since he left her there in the Invasion of Time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, because this story takes place just pretty soon after the Five Doctors. So the Five Doctors has happened. The Doctor's taken off. He's had the rest of the series, and this is after Frontiers. So it's just the Doctor and Tegan. They've just taken the Gravis dropped off on some planet where he can't do any harm, and so they're on their way back to get Turlough. So that's the gap that Big Finish have used. So it's only a few months since Five Doctors. And of course, every time the Doctor's gone back, he's missed Leela every time he's been there. But this time he actually sees her. And in fact, she comes to warn him about what's going on. So it's great watching the Fifth Doctor. Once again, Peter Davis and Louise Jemison have worked together a bit beforehand. They'd worked on stage together. I think they'd played husband and wife at one stage. And so this is a chance for them to get together and actually act together. It's actually Louise Jemison's first story in the main range since Zagreus, which I think is 14 years earlier. So, because Leela doesn't appear very often in the main range, so it's a chance for Leela to be back in the main range. So watching her and Peter are very serious together. But once again, Louise plays the straight character, and Janet Fielding is always playing the comic second whenever they're together. So their scenes are very amusing all the time.
Is Big Finish contradicting their own continuity here? Because I am only going from my memory here, but this is supposedly set after Frontios, after they dropped the Gravis off. But didn't Excellus Dawns, the first Excellus story, take place at the same time when the Doctor had just dropped off the Gravis? Doesn't he make comments like that in Excellus?
That's right.
Can't remember.
Yeah, that's right. It actually happens in the same gap. So I think either Excellus Dawns happens before this one, or this happens before Excellus Dawns. So he takes a while to get back to Turlough. It's a gap. You've got to Big Finish know how to use any gap well.
Yeah, but Tegan's not in Excellus, is she? Is she?
In the TARDIS? Does he leave her inside the TARDIS?
Ah, is that what he does?
It's been a few years since I've listened to Excellus, but I think there's a line where he's left her inside the TARDIS.
Okay.
So I think that's why she's not there.
So let's talk about the story itself. So it's set with the Doctor being tracked down, taken back to Gallifrey, where he's enforced into being president, and various machinations happen after that. So it's kind of split into several different storylines, with the first episode being the Doctor being dragged back, and then the second story. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Philip?
Yep. I guess one of the funny things about the whole first story is just wanting to wipe Tegan's mind, doing a Zoe and Jamie thing and putting it back. And there's all this discussion about what mind they should, how much of her mind they should wipe, and does she even have a mind there to wipe? So you've got all the politics of the first episode in terms of Barusa and the mess he's left, and the amusing things they make fun of is the fact that Barusa has only appointed idiots to the High Council, so that no one's good enough to actually lead or take over. And so people in power often only appoint idiots around them, which I think is a bit of a nasty statement to be making about our governments, but I think that's the joke Eddie's having. And then in the second episode, you got this lovely situation where the Doctor and Leela go off to meet and have a peace treaty with these aliens, and they work out that the Doctor and Leela actually killed the brother of the main person they're meeting with. And so you've got this diplomatic mission where the Doctor and Leela are caught in the situation that they've actually murdered, well, they've killed the brother, who's actually, I think he's related to Aziel for the demons. Certainly it's that sort of situation.
I think he was in Japan doing research, looking for Azal, Last of the Demons, or something like that.
That's right. I knew there was a connection there. But yeah, so you've got this sudden situation where rather than actually going for a diplomatic mission, you're now heading towards war. And it's actually Tegan who has to save the day.
Yeah, so that's pretty funny. And what about the third episode? What happens in that one?
So the third episode's all about student protests, and it's actually interesting. It's one of those themes that becomes big in Gallifrey later on. So, because this is taking place before Gallifrey started, because that's after Zagreus, and this is taking place chronologically before then. One of the things that Romana tries to do is to try and reform the universities, because she doesn't think the university situation is fair. And this is actually the Fifth Doctor doing the first thing, trying to work out how to change the academy and make it fairer, but actually make it look like he's not doing it. And he's dealing with protesting. Well, on one storyline is there's a protesting student who's trying to destroy the whole university system and doesn't realize the Doctor's on his side, but the Doctor's actually helping him. And then you've got this other situation where you've got the remake of the first Doctor, where this Time Lord comes to Tegan and wants to take off on a trip to see the world and see excitement, except he's a total incompetent. And so he starts trying to drag Tegan off. So it's, once again, just comedy era after comedy era. And once again, it brings in the fast return switch. It brings in going back to the dawn of time, and just trying to deal with all these repercussions of a Doctor who's pathetic, trying to steal a TARDIS.
So far it seems to be a heap of... there's a heap in it, but it's like heaps of references to the history of the show. That it's a complete fan service, this story. But it's totally it's not. I don't know how it's not fan wank as such, because it's not trying to be serious, because it's trying to be funny. I think that's where this succeeds, and that's why they can jam so much in there, which is fantastic. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. A lot more than last time we were on when we were talking about the wrong Doctors. I just loved every single episode of this. We got to the 4th episode and we find that that the whole Citadel has been turned into a which is cool. And do you want to talk a little bit more about the detail in that episode, Philip?
Oh, it wasn't. Want to avoid spoilers for people who haven't listened to this one. But yeah, once again, the Citadel is actually and there's a plot to basically, it's one of the characters thinks it's time for Gallifrey to assert itself around the universe, and so all the resources have been put into this mega Citadel, which is more than it seems. So once again, lots of running up and down corridors, and in and out of vents. So it's taking a lot of the types of Doctor Who and just mixing them together, making a very fun script.
And one of the sound design things that I really love was that it's not the exact same sound, but it's a very similar sound to the sound of Gallifrey in the War Games, going in the background there throughout, which is a nice nod to that era of the show too. So that's really cool. So I noticed one of the cast in there, Tim Sutton. He was a sound designer or did the music for a previous episode. Can't remember what that was now, but I thought that was interesting. Lots of people within the cast of Big Finish over the years have done a range of many different things. So this is just another example of that.
Most of the Big Finish 4 story discs are usually 4 very distinct stories with different casts. And I think I'd forgotten the fact that this really is 4 stories, but it's the same cast running in all 4 stories. There's a couple of guests that pop in and out of some of the other stories, but on the whole, you've got the main characters, main Gallifreyans, the Doctor, Tegan, Leela, running throughout the 4 episodes. So it doesn't feel like it's 4 different stories. Until the end, you sort of go, oh, hang on a second, each episode was actually slightly different. So it's a clever way of combining a 4-story episode into one, but still holding together like a single story.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I love the artwork too on the cover with Peter Davison in his full regalia, including the thimble of Rassilon.
And the belt of Omega.
The belt of Omega. Yeah. that was a revelation as well. Anything else you wanted to mention that I haven't at this stage about time in office?
No, it's certainly worth a listen to. Lots of very funny things happening throughout. And it doesn't matter if you're a fan who knows the series well, you'll see lots of things in there to laugh at. If you're a person into fan fiction, there's lots of stuff in there to laugh at as well. But it doesn't matter. You may know nothing at all about Doctor Who, you'll still find it a fun story.
Yeah, very, very easy to follow as well. So that's cool. All right, thank you for that. I thought next time, and I wonder how you feel about this, Philip. I'll put this to you. Next time, we could have a look at 2 Fourth Doctor stories. Would that be okay with you?
I love the Fourth Doctor. That'd be great.
Because I haven't really looked at them in depth yet on the podcast, so I thought we could have a look at 2. And since we had Louise Jameson in Time and Office, why don't we have a look at the one that she wrote, which is called The Abandoned. one of the episodes that she starred in as well as wrote with the Fourth Doctor. And another character that I like from the Fourth Doctor era is Drax. So there's a story called The Trouble with Drax. So why don't we have a look at those for next time?
Brilliant. I look forward to it.
Sound good? All right. So here we are at that little part of the show again where we have a look at what we've been listening to. So, Philip, I'll go to you first. What do you recommend listening to? What have you been listening to that's been doing it for you?
Well, can I throw a podcast at you?
Go for it.
So one of the podcasts, I sort of discovered it through the back door about 12 months ago. Actually through the goodies, through Blake Seven, then into Doctor Who, is the Doctor Who Show. So there are a couple of guys, I think one's in Melbourne, I think one's in Sydney. Really entertaining. They have a monthly show, so I'll just be listening to that this week. And they just did an episode on companions that travel across doctors, in terms of does the transfer from one doctor to the next serve the characters well or not. So it's an excellent episode, very funny. I love how they discuss things that are usually very positive about what they listen to. So yeah, the Doctor Who Show is a great podcast.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we hadn't discussed this before we started recording this episode, but I only listened to that episode on Companions yesterday. So
there you go.
Yeah, I can highly recommend that too. I think the last episode was all about Terry Nation. So they did a Terry Nation feature. And yeah, they get lots of great feedback from all over the world, and it's just great to hear those guys and their banter, because they don't hold back if they've got something they don't like, but they do it in a way that's not hating on it, which I really like.
They don't hate at all. So they're prepared to criticise and
yes.
say what they don't like, but no hating, which is good.
Yeah. No, that's we need much more of that these days. Less, if we have less likes and clicks and clickbait and more meaningful discussion, I think that's good all round. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, what I'd like to recommend is, well, based on another podcast that I have been listening to for a long time, from guys that you would know, Philip from the Doctor Who Club of Australia, Brendan and Nathan. And Todd do Flight Through Entirety. When they were on the classic series, they had Richard Stone on as one of the guests. He mustn't like the new series because I haven't heard him on Flight Through Entirety since the.
No, Richard still does some.
But he would always come on and talk about when they were reviewing classic episodes, the Target novelizations, and he would often listen to the audiobook and review that as part of their Flight Through Entirety episodes. So one that stood out to me was the Five Doctors audiobook, which is narrated by Jon Culshaw. And of course, we all know Jon Culshaw with his impersonations is very good for comedy, as well as his very serious impersonations of characters for Big Finish now. He's doing the Brigadier first and foremost in the Third Doctor box sets, which is really, really good. I think he's in the new box set Masterful. I think he's doing something in that as well. Maybe a short trip or something. Because I think he does the Delgado and Ainley Masters.
Oh, yeah. And
if you listen to the Five Doctors audiobook, his impersonation of Anthony Ainley is just superb. And it's, well, especially his... I know they've got Tim Treloar, but if they didn't have Tim Treloar for the Third Doctor, they could easily have Jon Culshaw as a replacement for John Pertwee, because we all know he does a great Fourth Doctor, but he does a superb Third Doctor as well. And it's interesting. It's interesting listening to that for the Third Doctor and comparing it to Tim Treloar, because they are quite different, but they're the same character. It's really strange hearing these things. And as you know, Big Finish has always been averse in the past to recasting parts like that. That was something they always said they'd never do, but then they changed, which is fine. Change is good. I think it's been a good thing. Some people don't like. What do you think about the recasting, Philip? Does it work for you? I know it works for me.
It took me a while. So with the Third Doctor box sets, I didn't get the first couple because I was I didn't want to. And then I guess it was the one with Benton, and that came out. I thought, oh well, I want to hear them, see how they go. So I think it's the third or the fourth box that I bought, and then I've gone back now and bought all of them because actually I enjoyed it. So I often take a while to warm up to ideas, but I gave it a try, and once I gave it a try, I liked it. So I know they're recasting Elizabeth Sladen. Well, they have a daughter playing it, and a fourth Doctor coming up in a Lost Story. Once again, I'm hesitant about that. I'm a bit nervous, but I'll listen to it and see how it goes.
Is that Return of the Cybermen you're talking about?
That's right. So they've recast Harry and they've recast Sarah. So Sarah's being played by her daughter, who was in all the Sarah Jane CDs, and so she's a really great little actress. I like her.
But doesn't sound a bit like her mum.
But I wouldn't have thought she sounds like a mum.
No, but it's nice that it's nice that she does play that part. And I know Carolyn John's daughter played Liz Shaw in one of the Third Doctor box sets too, didn't she?
In Primeval, the Inferno, yes. And that was there was times when she sounded like her mum, then there was times there wasn't.
Most of the time,
I'm still on the fence about how I feel about it.
What are your thoughts on the recasting of Ben? Because he doesn't sound much like Michael Craze, but it kind of works for me. That's Matthew Elliott, right?
Yeah, Elliott. That's right. There's so little Elliott Chapman, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, Matthew Elliott is the writer. It's Elliott Chapman. Yeah,
Elliott Chapman is the actor. I think there's so little stuff that we have of Ben on screen that I don't feel ownership towards Ben particularly. And so I know, and even though I've listened to all the audios, the stories on audios dozens of times, I don't feel particularly connected to him. So I didn't bother me as much. And I guess the opportunity of hearing Fraser Hines and Annika Wills was worth the sacrifice of casting one person. But yeah, he works okay for me. But as I said, I don't know Ben well enough to care, I think.
Well, getting back to my recommendation, the 5 Doctors on audio, you can get it from Audible. That's where I got it. And am listening to it at the moment. So really, really enjoying that. And that's all I'll recommend this time. So what have we got? The 5 Doctors audio and the Doctor Who Show podcast. I'll put links to those in the show notes. So, and you can find those at our website, sirensofaudio.com. You can email us at sirensofaudio@gmail.com. Twitter at Audio Sirens, and we have a Facebook page. Just look us up there. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to let our listeners know, Philip?
No, looking forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Until then, farewell.